Good evening. You can see me up here, and I can't see you because of the darkness. That makes an old soldier a little bit uncomfortable. For over 30 years, it was my honor to serve our nation as a commissioned officer in the United States Army. One might say that I went a lot of places, did a lot of things, and got a lot of t-shirts. Through most of that long career, I was trusted to lead others in both peace and in war. I learned vital lessons about leadership. Tonight, I have an interesting leadership challenge: to lead all of you to grasp the essence of leadership. We're going to do that through a war story from a year I spent deployed to the Balkans. We'll begin, as we will end, with this key counsel: open your eyes and lead. First, you're going to need some background. The Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia began to disintegrate in 1991. The republics of Slovenia and Croatia declared independence in June, bringing on war with the Serbian-dominated Yugoslav National Army. Bosnia-Herzegovina declared a year later, marking the beginning of its descent into an abyss of blood-soaked violence, the likes of which Europe had not witnessed since 1945. Rebel Serb forces besieged Sarajevo. 8,000 men and boys were murdered at Srebrenica. Other unspeakable atrocities were committed on all sides. The war raged on. The parties would not stop it. The United Nations could not stop it. Finally, with U.S. leadership, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization intervened and did stop it through an aerial campaign that compelled the belligerents to negotiate. They signed accords in Dayton, Ohio in December 1995. 60,000 NATO-led troops, then with the U.S. providing the largest contingent, then entered Bosnia to implement the accords, to separate the former warring factions, and to keep a tenuous peace. But by then, 140,000 people had been killed. 18 months later, I was assigned as the deputy legal advisor in a U.S.-commanded multinational peacekeeping division headquartered near Tuzla in northeast Bosnia. Our duties sometimes took us to Sarajevo. One such occasion was to attend a conference of military lawyers from the participating peacekeeping nations. We flew into what had been Sarajevo International Airport. We were billeted, housed in a compound called Butmir, which was south and east of the airport. The conference was held at the headquarters of the International Stabilization Force in Elizda, some distance west of the airport. That headquarters was at the site of an historic resort hotel, fatefully the place where Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his wife Sophie stayed the night before they were murdered by a Bosnian Serb in downtown Sarajevo in June 1914, a principal triggering event of the First World War. As we were bused from Butmir to Elizda, we passed along what had been the front line between Bosnian and Serbian forces. There was evidence of immense suffering. The buildings were devastated. No one yet dared live in that area. It remained a no man's land. One night, we were permitted to visit the center of the city. We welcomed that because the threat conditions in central Sarajevo were considered to be lower than the Tuzla area. While we went armed, we were not required to wear helmets or body armor. We dined out and enjoyed a bit of the culture of a recovering capital. The evening was to end with a ride on a military bus back to Butmir in order to meet an 11 p.m. curfew. And that was where things went a little sideways. A malevolent creature I know well, and whom I call the Good Idea Fairy, arrived on the scene. She smacked one of my young, enterprising officers, Captain Smith, hard in the head with her magic stick. Deeming the bus unfit for us, he decided to hire a taxi. He was pleased at having negotiated a discounted group fare. He assured me that the driver would take us back to Butmir and that we need not worry about linking up with a slow-moving bus. I should have countermanded his plan, but I did not want to discourage a junior officer from showing initiative. We found the cab. There were 5 or 6 of us. The cab could seat 2 or 3. We crammed ourselves into the clown car. I ended up with my head on the back seat, my legs thrust between the 2 front seats, and my feet straddling the gear shift. I propped myself horizontally with a hand on the rear floorboard. As we hurtled through the darkened streets of Sarajevo, our driver cracked jokes in broken English. But as we approached the vicinity of the airport, the jokes ceased. Our driver grew anxious. He moaned. He slowed. He stopped. He refused to go further. We got out. Captain Smith belatedly learned that the driver had understood Butmir only as the general area of the airport. He was Bosnian, and he was obviously frightened. The Butmir compound was on the other side of a critical boundary. It lay in the Serb Republic. Driving his Bosnian-plated car into Serbian-controlled territory could have been an invitation for the driver's kidnapping or far worse. He turned the clown cab around and disappeared into the night. Well, there we stood, a gaggle of U.S. Army lawyers staring at one another. The hollow eyes of those ruined buildings and abandoned fighting positions stared out as well. I checked my watch. Curfew loomed. The others stared on as if wishing some form of transport or other help would emerge from the gloom. I decided then that 2 things were going to happen. First, we were going to make it back to Butmir, and second, we were going to make it by 11. I inventoried our ammunition and magazines and distributed them evenly among the group. Then I said, "Follow me," and moved out on a road to the east, setting a brisk pace. It was already the dead of night. We were alone. We had no radio. We had neither map nor compass. I had never set foot on that terrain, but I led on through the blackness. Eventually, the lights of Butmir appeared in the distance. Ironically, as we neared, the bus that we would have been on roared heedlessly past on the unlit road, leaving us coughing up dust and diesel exhaust. But soon enough, we were through the gate with about 10 minutes to spare. Some were winded, others were footsore. One was embarrassed, and one was perturbed, the officer who had had a hard time keeping up with our pace. I recovered the ammunition and the magazines and sent everyone to their bunks. Now, we can draw leadership principles from that impromptu night patrol of some 27 years ago. The essence is this: a leader sees things that others do not. A leader's vision enables the leader to see 3 essential things. They are place, performance, and potential. There are natural leaders in whom this ability seems inborn. Far more commonly, it is something gained through training, education, and above all, experience. If you have it by nature, you are lucky. You should recognize it and use it. If you lack it, you can and should gain it. First, a leader has visibility of place. As a leader, you must be able to see where your people, where your organization has been, where it is, and where it needs to be. On the bus between Butmir and Elista on our first morning, most of those on board took advantage of a rare opportunity to relax. They chatted noisily with each other, including with international partners they had not met. As a group, they were for that time focused inwardly, unaware of what was occurring outside as we traveled. By nature, I focused outwardly. Through the bus windows, I noted turns in the road, buildings, intersections, the position of the airport, and the extensive wreckage of war. As a consequence, when that frightened cab driver later set us out amidst that wreckage, I could see something the others could not. I knew where we were, and I knew where Butmir was, and I knew I could keep us on the road to get us there. That night, place meant points on the ground, our position relative to that of our compound. but place may imply much more. It can refer to the financial circumstances of a business, the goals of a family, the mission of a government agency, or an infinite array of other things. Regardless of the context, if you would lead, you must develop the capacity to see where your organization and your people have been, where they are, and the goal or destination toward which you must lead them. Second, a leader has visibility of performance. As a leader, you must be able to see what your people can do today, especially when they cannot see that for themselves. As I let out that night, one of our number, Captain Jones, soon complained about our pace. He was perhaps less fit than some of the others, or more probably concerned about being perceived as weak. While I was confident that I could keep us on the correct route, I was less certain of how far we had to go and therefore how much time it would take to arrive. That is why I kept a fast pace. But I knew Captain Jones well enough to know that despite his own doubts, he could keep up with the group. I also knew the others well enough to know that they would help Jones make it. They rallied around him, and their support and encouragement to Jones made a difference. If you would lead, you must recognize, you must recognize a couple of things. Most people have far more capacity and capability than they realize. People commonly have no harsher judges nor fiercer critics than themselves. If you would lead them, you must recognize the good in them, your people, and seek to foster that rather than allowing their perceived or actual weaknesses to fester. If you would lead, you must recognize potential for performance in others when they do not see it in themselves. Third, a leader has visibility of potential. As a leader, you must be able to look ahead and see what your people can do in the future. Captain Smith had good intentions when he hired the taxi that night to find an efficient way back to Bootmere. But he made an error in judgment as a young officer who did not fully recognize the implications of his actions. And perhaps I erred as well by not ordering a different approach. The decision to hire a cab exposed us to inconvenience and perhaps to some modest danger. Afterwards, I could have made an issue of it. I could have reprimanded Captain Smith. I could have made it a matter of official record. I could have damaged his career prospects. I did none of these. Captain Smith knew he had erred. I knew that he had learned what he needed to gain from the experience. Well before that night, I had seen in Captain Smith one of the most brilliant intellects I had encountered. I had found in Captain Smith one of the most articulate voices I had heard. His duty performance was outstanding. When he finished his first tour, I asked that he be assigned to me in the next organization I led, where he excelled in the demanding duties of a defense attorney representing soldiers on trial for serious crimes. He was among the first that I would trust when I needed to detail counsel to difficult cases. He went on to a long and successful career in the Army. Across those years, I never had occasion to remind him of that long ago lapse in the dark of a Balkan night. I had seen what he had the potential to do, and I eagerly sought to help him realize that potential. If you would lead, you must develop the capacity to see through current faults and recognize the potential of those you lead to accomplish great and good things in the future. Now to conclude, with a blinding flash of the obvious, leaders see. A leader sees what others do not see. You will lead if you see where your people have been, where they are, and where they need to be. You will lead if you see what your people can do now, and you will lead if you see what your people can do in the future. The essence of leadership is that a leader always sees place, performance, and potential. If you would do the same, then open your eyes and lead. Thank you and good night.